Hey everyone, I'm Madals, and today we're doing another Borderlands 3 build guide, and this is going to be looking at Flak. I'm calling this the Critical Hunter, and essentially it all revolves around getting a lot of crit damage on a weapon with a low magazine, so things like sniper rifles, and probably just one-shotting everything. So let's get into the build. We're going to start off in the Hunter tree here, and that means we're grabbing the Rack Attack active ability. This is a ability that sends 2 racks forward to dive bomb enemies. It has multiple charges, an 18-second cooldown. It's pretty nice. We're also going to get our first pet, which is the Serpentan Centurion. This fun little fellow, he is going to allow us to constantly regenerate 1% of our max health per second. Nice, and also has an attack command, which causes him to go and charge into enemies, which always fun. Jumping into the first row, we are going to put a 1 point into Interplanetary Stalker initially, then we're going to stick 3 points into Leave No Trace. So Leave No Trace is an ability which means when you get a crit, there's a chance for 1 ammo to be added to your current magazine. This is why this build focuses on weapons that have a low magazine count and high damage per shot. It basically reduces our need to reload by 36%. We'll then put 2 more points into Interplanetary Stalker, which is a Hunter Kill skill. And this is that whenever Flak kills an enemy, you gain a stack of Interplanetary Stalker, which increases all damage you deal, plus whether it was a human, robot, or beast, gives you another bonus to either action skill damage, corrosive damage, or movement speed. So all in all, a nice kill skill ability. The second row of the Hunter tree also has some goodies for us. First of all, 3 points into head count. This is that whenever Flak scores a critical hit, there's a chance that their action skill cooldown is reduced. So this is going to mean more racks for now, but that might change a bit later. And also, we're going to put just 1 point into Ambush Predator, which gives you increased weapon handling and crit damage when there's no enemies nearby. So your first shot in kind of entering combat, or depending on how big the range is going to be quite nice. And that's really just to unlock Two Fang. Two Fang is a key part of this build, is that you have a chance on every shot to fire an extra projectile. 5 points there, straight away, maxed out. That synergizes beautifully with Leave No Trace, and also just this entire build revolving around having a low magazine weapon, which I'm going to tell you so many times because it's essential to getting the best out of this build. Row 4 has one of my favorite abilities, which is Big Game. And now Big Game is going to give all your hunter skills much more effect and a much longer duration. So 3 of 3, it's 30% increased effect of them and 100% extra duration. Now, our hunter skills we've got so far are, of course, Interplanetary Stalker, and we're also going to pick up 1 point now in the Most Dangerous Game. Now, this, I'd actually put 1 point in this before we max out Big Game Hunter, just to get the benefit of it. So this is whenever you kill a badass or stronger enemy, you get increased critical hit damage, gun damage, and handling, plus a bit of cash, for 120 seconds. But of course, when you add in Big Game of 3 of 3, that actually goes up to 240 seconds, which is a hella long time, so definitely go for that. We then, of course, bounce up into the next row, and let's talk about Galactic Shadow, because, oh boy, it makes me get all funny feeling because it's so good. Whenever Flak deals a critical hit, it's going to deal increased damage. 1 point for 15% additional critical hit damage. Beautiful. Get it. Finishing up the Hunter tree and getting up to that capstone, we're going to put 2 more points into Interplanetary Stalker. That gets that really nice. We're going to stick an extra point into the Most Dangerous Game, which makes us more effective against badasses. That leaves you with 1 point. You can put it in a couple of places, but I'm going to stick it in Ambush Predator just to get that combat off to a good start. And that then opens up Mega Drive. Ooh, Mega Drive is fun because that means that Flak gains a chance to score a critical hit with weapons against any part of the enemy. So if you're not the best shot or you're just going pew 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 lots, this is just going to be beautiful at a 20% crit chance and works so nicely with all our other crit boosting things. For the evolution of our pet in the Hunter tree, there's 2 good options here, actually, and it really depends on what your gear's like and how you're finding the game. So a Spider-Ant Scorcher means that the Spider-Ant deals damage to everything nearby, and also gives you elemental resistance. The other option is to go into Spider-Ant Countess. Now, this again causes you to constantly regenerate health and gain just flat damage reduction at 5% rather than 10% of elemental damage. But it does also do corrosive damage when it charges in. So this is really going to be down to you and how you're finding your particular playthrough on whether you're taking more overall damage or more elemental damage. Check out and see. On the action skill Augments, I don't really like Rack Open a Cold One for cryo damage. Doesn't really do much for this build. I prefer, if you need some survivability, grabbing Falconer's Feast, which is whenever a rack damages an enemy, 7% of that damage is returned. Nice. You've also got a Flock and Load, which gives you an extra rack when you send it forward. I put this in the second slot. If you don't need the extra survivability from Falconer's Feast, go for this point. That basically gives your rack increased cooldown rate, and you gain an additional charge of it, so you can just use that action skill even more. Moving over to the Master Tree now, and we're going to be buffing our pet. First up, we're going to grab Persistent Hunter. This increases Flak's gun damage and action skill duration. It's a flat buff for 3 points of 12% more gun damage and 45% more action skill duration. Just nice. Our other 2 points in this row are going to go in to Go for the Eyes. This gives your pet a 2 out of 5, a 30% critical hit damage buff, and makes every single first hit, so not every single hit, but every first hit, guaranteed to be a critical hit from your pet. So a good damage boost. The other option is just a flat pet damage boost, but I prefer focusing on crits here. Continuing on the plan of doing a lot of damage very quickly, the second row of the Master Trait gives us another Hunter skill. This is whenever Flak's pet deals damage, both Flak and their pet gain a stack of Frenzy. Frenzy stacks, increasing your damage done, and that's all damage up to 10 times, and it gives you 4% damage per stack, so up to 40% bonus damage. It's crazy. And remember, over in the Hunter tree, we picked up Big Game that makes all Hunter skills 30% more effective and have double their duration. Nice. Then we also just go and pick up another Hunter skill, which we've just unlocked, which is Psycho Head on a Stick. This means that whenever Flak kills an enemy, your pet gains increased movement speed and damage for a few seconds. By default, it's 8 seconds, but with Big Game Hunter, that's 16 seconds. It's a 10% damage buff and 12% move speed buff, plus the bonus from Big Game. So yeah, that's going to be great. Pick it up. To get us the next few points, we need to jump up into the next row of talons. We're going to max out Go for the Eyes, again giving your pet's first attack against an enemy a guaranteed crit and bonus crit damage. And also, Who Rescued Who? This is quite a cool one for survivability of both you and your pet. So whenever your pet deals damage, you regenerate health for a few seconds. Whenever Flak deals damage, your pet regenerates health for a percentage of the damage dealt. Get 2 points in that. Whether you get that before or after maxing out Go for the Eyes is again going to come down to how survivable and how tanky you're feeling, and how well you're avoiding damage. That then unlocks the next row of talents, and we're going to go for Mutated Defensive, 1 point of this, because this is a astronomical boost to your pet's survivability. So whenever your pet gets at low health, it gains damage reduction, 30% as well, and also gives it health regeneration of 40% of its max health pool. It can be used every 15 seconds automatically. It's a passive. It's just fantastic for 1 point. The other 4 points for this row, we're going to go into Barbaric Yop, which increases the pet bonuses granted to Flak. So these are basically the nice little points we get from, if we look in this tree, for example, from your Charger, the Centurion. So I've gone here, the Scorcher one. That'll basically give me 60% more on top of that 10% elemental damage. So at 3 points, that's 60%, so that takes it up to 16%. So an extra 6% elemental damage reduction. With just 2 skill points less put into this tree, or any tree for that matter, we're going to get 1 point in Shared Spirit. This is such an insane boost to your survivability. So, when Flak's health gets low, a portion of all damage you take is shared to your pet instead, and it's 50%. Add that in with Mutated Defensive in the row above that gives your pet that massive defensive boost. It makes you tanky as hell. It's lovely. That leaves you 1 more point. You could look to put it in Who Rescued Who if you need a bit more survivability. You could put in a Hive Mind for, again, another way to get a bit of defensive. Or you could do what I'm going to do, which is get more pet bonus and put it into Barbaric Yup. Now, due to, obviously, Flak getting only 1 active skill due to the pet, at some point, I'm going to switch over my active ability and my pet to the one in the Master Tree. So Gamma Burst is just going to be super useful. It creates a rift at a target location, and that teleports your pet through and deals radiation damage to all nearby enemies. It also makes your pet irradiated, growing in size and dealing bonus radiation damage when it attacks. Using Gamma Burst while your pet is dead also revives the pet. So again, Another bit of survivability. It's beautiful. And plus it gives radiation damage, which increases the damage enemies take and just is useful. We're also going to look at switching our pet over to the Guard Skag. Now, this is an interesting one. So it's joined by a loyal companion. It's going to give you 5% bonus damage. Really nice. What we will end up doing, though, is upgrading that to one of the evolved states. So there's the Great Horn Stag, which increases the damage by 5 still, but gives you an extra 10% gun damage, which when we're doing big crits with low magazine weapons, really good. I think that's going to be such a big damage boost. Also, if you're not going for that, you could go for the fire rate one, which is a 5% fire rate buff. The nice thing on this is the attack command of the pet gives you a ability which basically causes a singularity and pulls enemies in, which, to be honest, could be great if you're trying to group things up for your team, but for us, it's not really necessary, and I think that 10% gun damage is going to be way more useful on these big crit low hit weapons than the additional fire rate. Over on the active skill augments, we're going to grab... actually, I've got to click the active skill. That would help, wouldn't it? What we're going to do here is look at Empathic Rage. So for the duration of Gamma Ray Burst, damage dealt by Flak is increased by 20%. That's big. And we've also got action skill reduction on the other tree. So that is going to be awesome. The other point I would put in here is going to be Endurance, and that's when Flak or Flak Pet kills an enemy. Gamma Burst, while Gamma Burst is active, the duration of Gamma Burst is extended and the pet damage is increased, and this stacks. It's a 10% per stack up to 5 times, so up to a 50% boost to your pet's damage. Yeah, awesome. Pick that up as the second point. The other option is obviously Atomic Aroma, which is while Gamma Burst is active, Flak's pet is surrounded by a radiation aura, constantly damaging all nearby enemies. Yeah, you could get this if you're doing like a lot of mobbing. I don't think it's that great personally. Or you could get Burst Aid, which is after using Gamma Ray Burst, the rift remains open for the duration, and if you stand near it, you get health regeneration. If you feel like you and your team needs more tankiness or more survivability, you could pick that up in place. Or you could just get as much damage as you possibly can and kill everything before it hurts you. That's my approach. So that concludes this guide to Flak, and honestly, this hunter build is beautiful. Massive crits with things like sniper rifles or low ammunition weapons, where every single shot you get out is just going to hit so hard. Additional projectiles, and not to mention a chance to refill the mag. And with the radiation damage coming from the active skill on the master tree, it's just lovely. Big game buffing up all of your hunter skills, and the fact that when you kill badasses or higher, you get more damage, more crit damage. You're just going to be a wrecking ball going everywhere. And if you go with a sniper rifle, you can do it from a distance and then just not really worry about anything. So, as always, let me know what you think of this build in the comments below. Tell me if you want to play it, if you like it, or if you think it's dumb. I really don't mind. I like talking to you. Leave a like and also subscribe and ding the bell if you want to get notifications when I put up more videos. Plus, if you like watching live streams, check out twitch.tv/Madals. That's where me, and quite often my wife as well, go live playing awesome games like Borderlands 3. We'll see you there. Thanks for watching.